The Wednesday edition of the North Shore Drive podcast comes with a lot of excitement and disappointment. But the excitement is that Kenny Pickett will be the Steelers starting quarterback. What does that mean for him? What does that mean for Matt Canada and the future of this Steelers team? We'll talk about that with Jason Mackey of the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. But also, we got to talk about the Pirates, man. 100 losses already. Whew. It's a rough situation. But Jason's got some perspectives for you Pirates fans, both who want to commiserate in the misery, but also who have hope for the future. All that and more on the Post-Gazette's North Shore Drive podcast. I'm Chris Carter. Let's get into it. You are now listening to the North Shore Drive podcast, a show on all things Pittsburgh sports from the writers of the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, hosted by Christopher Carter. And welcome to the North Shore Drive podcast. I'm Chris Carter. He's Jason Mackey. We are both of the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, and we are here giving you our sports perspective on a Wednesday. We hope that you're having a great day out there, y'all. First, we got to talk to you guys about our friends at the Acrisure Fan Advantage. Of course, the Acrisure Fan Advantage is what we give you guys every Thursday, but you have the power to project one of our Post-Gazette Steelers beat writers into your home or office using augmented reality. You can get an exclusive pregame breakdown for a Steelers expert standing right in your living room. Get the latest insights on starting lineups, key matchups, critical stats at post-gazette.com/Acrisure Fan Advantage. No apps or downloads, just insider access to Steelers updates at post-gazette.com/Acrisure Fan Advantage and get a real edge on this week's action. As I said, we're joined by Jason Mackey, who's in the live level. We get guys in the live settings. Like you're outside right now. How's it going, Jason?
Man, it's gorgeous out here, and I'm enjoying the sunshine, man. Like I'm doing this outside first of all because I had COVID. I think people know that. I'm trying to be respectful of I'm following CDC guidelines. I'm outside of the UPMC Lemieux Sports Complex, as people can probably tell, and I'll wear a mask inside and all that stuff. Not to make this about that, but it's nice to be out, man. It really is. Yeah. Like, it was my first bout with that thing, and it's not like it was that bad or anything, but I mean, I just stayed home and isolated and was in my house for the past 6 days, and it's nice to be outside in the sunshine. So I'm doing well. Going to watch some hockey practice here shortly.
Well, there you go. I'm glad that you're doing well. That thing, I got that thing in the spring, and it knocked me off my butt for like a good month. I was like, ugh.
Wow.
Yeah, but again, hits everyone differently. But let's talk about how Kenny Pickett is hitting this city right now because, we were talking about it last week. Everyone's chanting, Kenny. And when he went into the game, Jason, I've been talking about this all week, but it was just amazing how a simple 5-yard out route was just drawing serious explosions from the crowd like Renegade had played with every 5-yard pass. And I'm not making fun of Kenny Pickett there. I'm just saying this is how excited people have been to see him in action. And yes, he threw 3 interceptions, but the Steelers 5 of 6 on third downs, and the 1 third down they didn't convert. He got it on 4th down with the sneak. There's hope there. And then Mike Tomlin on Tuesday at the press conference, officially confirming Kenny Pickett's the guy. They updated the depth chart. And now we're at a serious crossroads to say, okay, now that move's happened, we weren't sure if it would happen now, the bye week, or after the season was over. Now that it's happened, it's here. And it's time to put in perspective, what does this mean for the rookie first-round draft pick quarterback? Because the Steelers, I believe, have had 3 of those guys in him, Ben Roethlisberger, and Terry Bradshaw over the past 50-some years. And each of those other 2 guys went on to win Super Bowls. What does this mean? What do you think this means historically, Jason? Or are we overplaying that? Is this just, hey, Kenny Pickett's his own guy?
No, I don't think we're overplaying it at all. And what it meant in my house, I wanted to tell this story because this is funny. I'm covering the Pirates theoretically on TV in our my office, our back room, our player. It's just sort of the junk room or whatever. And then I hear my wife screaming, Kenny, following on her phone. And she's a Pitt fan, comes in, and we have one TV with cable and the other one doesn't. So she wants to watch the game. She goes, get that off of there. The Pirates game. All right. I put it on my iPad and that's how it played in our house. And I'm willing to bet there's, hundreds of thousands of houses. It was the same way. People are getting off of their couch cheering. I mean, this is not an insignificant moment in my point. I mean, in my perspective, obviously you can line up the first round pick stuff and the history of the Steelers stuff, but people have just been wanting this. It's you're going to have mistakes or losses or stuff that everybody in this city, I think, understands that it's not going to be a finished product. It's not perfect. Kenny's going to throw some interceptions. He's going to make some mistakes, but what are we efforting toward with Mitch Trubisky and what was happening over the first, however many quarters? Like, it's just, it wasn't good. They weren't getting anywhere. I'm glad they made the move they did. And now let's talk about the ramifications of it, Chris. But I loved it, man. I was just as excited to watch that thing as anybody else, and it's great theater.
It was great theater. It's great. It's a lot, and again, it's fun. The fun part of sports, the hope, the saying, hey, this could be the guy. Pitt fan, like your wife, she watched him be the guy at Pitt last year and lead them to their first ever ACC championship. But also, this is there's a lot of things that come with this. It's not just the hoping, and the excitement. On the Steelers end, there's a lot of game planning around this. You got to protect your rookie quarterback, not just the offensive line, but protect him from himself sometimes, to say, hey, we don't want you trying to do too much and getting yourself crushed out there. And Kenny Pickett's a guy who I can tell you, he throws his body into so many tough situations. He will put himself on the line. And I think that's part of his charisma, is he's like, hey, I'm going to risk myself because I want this win. And guys feed off of that. I know people fed off of that at Pitt, but at the same time, he's made it work for, in his collegiate career. And, at least in that first game, he got 2 touchdowns out of it, and was able to get the Steelers a lead that they ultimately ended up surrendering. But again, I really look at, at the situation with Kenny Pickett and how he's moving forward, and it makes you ask questions. What is this for Tomlin's legacy? As far as like, how does he handle this rookie quarterback? You look at Terry Bradshaw when he started with Chuck Noll. It wasn't a great start. He was actually pretty rough as a rookie. It wasn't until years later that he kind of became the Terry Bradshaw that became the Hall of Famer. But Ben Roethlisberger, of course, he had a great start. He won, I think, 15 straight of his starts for Bill Cowher, and that sparked a new journey for that version of the Steelers after, they were 6-10 the year before, and they were looking like they'd be 6-10 again if they kept Tommy Maddox in. But this is different than both of those. That was the steel curtain defense in the 70s that you were building around. Eventually you brought in Franco Harris, and you were putting those pieces together. In 2004, Ben Roethlisberger had a great defense around him. There was a running. Jerome Bettis was still there. The offensive line was more put together. And this is kind of a situation where the pieces are there maybe for the defense when it's healthy, but DJ Watt's out. They're not playing at the high level. The run game, you got Najee Harris. There's confidence in him, but the offensive line's still coming together. This seems like a unique challenge both for Tomlin and for Pickett, and I guess we'll say also for Matt Canada.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. No, Chris, the Roethlisberger Bradshaw comparisons are interesting, but I'm not sure either one is dead on.
Yeah.
Like if you look at the Bradshaw comparison, like, okay, the Steelers weren't great, but I'm not sure they had, well, I shouldn't say that, but I mean, I feel like this group of Steelers is probably further along than that group of Steelers was. I mean, certainly when Roethlisberger took over, they were better off. When Roethlisberger took over, it was basically just don't screw up, kid.
Yeah.
Like there are all these places, manage the game. We're going to run the ball well. We're going to play defense. We're going to do all this stuff. But it's its own journey. And I think that's what's cool about sports is just, we can try to draw comparisons. We can try to dig into history, but I mean, there's no playbook for this. There's no playbook for how this is going to play for Matt Canada. There's no playbook for how this is going to play for Mike Tomlin. I do know this, Chris, and I think we'll talk about this with as far as Matt Canada. I mean, these two are joined at the hip now.
Yeah.
Aren't they?
Yeah,
I mean,
they are.
He's sink or swim with Kenny at this point.
And I think that's an interesting dynamic that we can explore here, because when you look at offensive coordinators, they oftentimes they do get tied to, like Ken Wisenhunt. Ken Wisenhunt became a head coach eventually after Ben Roethlisberger got his start there. Bruce Arians, his time with Ben Roethlisberger after Ken Wisenhunt, he got head coaching opportunities. After that, other than like Eric Bieniemy with the Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes, most offensive coordinators that work with highly talented quarterbacks, they get opportunities after that. And this is Matt Canada's chance. And the other thing is, Matt Canada is no spring chicken. I think he's 50 years old. So like,
is he really?
Yeah. Huh. So that's the thing. Like Matt Canada's bounced around a lot. Like if you look at his career, and let me not be let me not just be making up numbers, but I'm pretty sure I looked this up earlier. Yeah, he's 50 years old. He's born in 72. So like, this, and that's not old for a head coach, for a offensive coordinator, but that's old for a new offensive coordinator. And it kind of puts you in a situation where you're like, Matt Canada, if you want to make moves to ascend the ranks in the NFL, you're going to need to succeed with Kenny Pickett at this time. And I think there's good pressure with that, because it's like, hey, now you can just open it up, build with this quarterback. And if good things happen, great. But if bad things happen, I can't imagine the Steelers being like, look, we gave you the shot, Matt. You had last year with Ben, this year with Kenny. We're gonna put in a new guy to make sure that Kenny can have a better start to his career than they did. But again, it all depends on how does this year go for him and Kenny Pickett.
Yeah, no, it does. And I have a frog in my throat, Chris. I'm hurting, man.
It's all good.
I'm not trying to COVID on you or anything.
No, it's fine. But I mean, I could talk you through it as you're working. As you're working through it, Eric, get some water, man. But Matt Canada, as far as what you're expecting him to do, it's not even going to be about the wins and the losses per se. I think a big thing is going to be, can Kenny Pickett be efficient in his offense? You know, like for example, the interceptions. I didn't have as much of a problem with the interception. The only one I did was the one that bounced off of Pat Fryermuth's hands, because he should have just thrown that one away. You don't throw across your body that far across the field. But you know, Claypool gave him a jump ball, the Hail Mary that you just throw those up. You give those guys a shot there. You know, when you look at those situations, if Kenny Pickett can be as efficient as he was on third downs and look as comfortable in the offense that Matt Canada is running, I think you keep Matt Canada. But and that's even if you see him be efficient and other things lead to problems, and the Steelers finish 8-9, 7-10, whatever their record ends up. If Mike Tomlin gets his first losing season, I don't think that means get Canada out of there. But you do need to see that efficiency. We didn't see it with Mitch Trubisky. It has to be there for Kenny Pickett.
So the thing, Chris, to me about Matt Canada, I mean, he has to adjust what he's doing. He has to adjust what he's doing for Kenny Pickett and use what has made Kenny Pickett successful. Like you talked about at the beginning of this thing, the moxie, using his legs, quarterback sneaks, get him out on the perimeter. I mean, that's one thing. I also like what they've done so far, throwing to George Pickens, utilize different receivers, utilize receivers differently. I want to see more from the receivers as far as protecting Kenny Pickett, helping him out. I didn't think the receivers did enough to knock balls down, not necessarily complete a pass, but keep it out of the hands of the other guys and be aware that that's going to happen. He's going to make throws that he shouldn't necessarily make. But, Pat Fryermuth, I thought did the best he could. There are others that, guys, just be aware that this is a rookie quarterback and he's going to make poor reads. So anyway, what I'm saying is just be aware, whether it's Matt Canada, whether you're receiver, even an offensive lineman, like you have to be aware that this kid is playing for the first time. And it's the right move for everybody. But it just takes a little bit, in my opinion, it's a little bit more awareness than they've shown so far.
Certainly. And we'll definitely I think there is an awareness that has to happen. You got to help your rookie quarterback out. Chase Claypool, you got to find a way to either come down with that ball or make sure the other team doesn't, in that situation. But I think it's also interesting, we've seen clips, strung together now of, very similar play concepts called Mitch Trubisky taking a sack and Kenny Pickett finding a way to hit a wide open Pat Fryermuth when, on a play where, Mitch Trubisky in the first half, when he had a similar play call, he had Pickens, Fryermuth, and Warren all open in the middle of the field, and he's taking a sack while Kenny Pickett is throwing it for, over the middle to get a big gain to get the Steelers down into a goal-to-go situation. We'll see how these play calls play out and what kind of pressure this puts on Matt Canada, Mike Tomlin, and this Steelers staff to help Kenny Pickett succeed. But we also got to talk about other things in Pittsburgh sports, because the Pirates are in a historical moment right now. Historically bad moment. We'll talk about that and whether or not you should expect them to turn around in just a minute here on the North Shore Drive podcast. But first, we got to talk to you guys about our great friends at Liquid Death. Now, while if you're out tailgating, you may notice someone crushing tall boys all day, and then they're staying completely sober and actually looking more hydrated as they go throughout the day. But chances are it's not a miracle beer. It's just a can of Liquid Death. And I have a can of Liquid Death right here. It's one of our great sponsors. Why do they call it Liquid Death? It's because it murders your thirst and it murders plastic pollution on the planet. That's huge because it's helping make you healthier, and it's helping make the planet healthier. Also, with every can sold, they donate 10% of their profits to help kill plastic pollution around the planet, and they just flat out taste great. And I drink it all the time. I keep them here. You hear that? It sounds just like a beer. It looks like a beer, but when you sip on it, It's just fresh water, and it tastes, you put it in your fridge, it's ice cold, it's ready to go, and it's fresh out the can. Great water. Go get yourself some Liquid Death. Not only refreshing, but it eliminates that plastic taste that you often get with like water bottles and any worry that your residue is going to, it might be in your water. So don't worry about that. Go get yourself some Liquid Death at your local Target, 7-Eleven, County Fair, or find a Liquid Death retailer near you with their store located at liquiddeath.com/shore. That's liquiddeath.com/shore. Back here on the North Shore Drive podcast, I'm Chris Carter. He's Jason Mackey. We're both of the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. And we're going to switch a little bit of tone here because, and we won't do this all the time, because, Pirates season it's got one more game on Wednesday and then it's officially over. But the question of whether or not they'd get to 100 losses was answered Tuesday night. They lose in extra innings, and it was another lead that they had that they squandered. They are 61-100. This is their second straight season with 100 losses, and it looks like, if they had a full season in 2020, it would have been a third straight season with 100 losses. And something that you've talked about, Jason, that you wrote about for the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette is this is a historic bad point for this organization. And that's an organization that, I'm 33 and I've only really, I was a baby when they were good in the early 90s, and I only had like 3 good years in the mid 2010s. And somehow this is still the worst of it. Jason, is this that bad that this is like the worst part of the Pirates that we've been since you and I have been in a lot?
I don't know if it's the worst. I mean, there's been some bad stuff. It feels that way though, doesn't it? Mm-hmm. It's not good. I joined the beat in May of 2019, and I'm not sure I've seen the fan base more agitated than it is right now. I mean, the second half of 2019, people were really upset for obvious reasons, but you also had things like, Felipe Vasquez and 4-24 and people fighting in the clubhouse or whatever. This, I think, irritates people because there's not like a card that's going to be played, and what I mean by that, the second half of 2019, you sort of had a sense, at least certainly, this time in that year, they fired Clint Hurdle. But I mean, things had been around for a while, and you say, well, there needs to be change. There needs to be change, whatever. Well, there's not much change that's going to happen with the Pirates. I mean, they've already committed to people coming back. I can tell you from being around it every day, there's not a ton of talk about, firing people or changing things or whatever. My expectations being around it is for them to have basically the same group. So that leaves us like, what's going to be different? And you said it in 2020, 2021, 2022, it's all 100 loss pace. They've only done that one other time in their history, 1952, 1953, 1954, and it was 100 plus losses every year. So this is significant stuff. Like the story I wrote, I had some fun with this, but I mean, they had a pitcher on that team who fought in World War II and was literally in a foxhole with George Patton. Like that's how long it has been. There's a story out there about poor Murray Dixon fighting in a foxhole with George Patton. Like this is not an insignificant moment in Pirates history. But in saying all of that, I also don't think that there's, there is some hope, I guess is what I'm saying. It's not all the doom and gloom. Now, I'm careful saying that because I have to walk that line between like, no, this is not acceptable. Yes, they have to improve it. But I do think there's somewhat of a vehicle in place for them to improve it. And I wrote about this in the column. Look at their starting rotation. They've got some guys who are actually objectively good. Like Mitch Keller has been good. Roansy Contreras, JT Brubaker for the most part. Bring in Luis Ortiz. Johan Oviedo is going to pitch the final game of the season today. These guys objectively have pitched well. They have pieces in, Reynolds, Sawinski, Cruz, Castro, Bay, Hayes. Like there's enough there that you're beginning to see a base. Now, the Pirates need to add to it this offseason. We've been down this road, but I don't look at the Pirates and say, oh my goodness, they're directionless, they're screwed, this is never going to improve. So I mean, it's like a two-brain thing, Chris, where, you have to acknowledge the negativity, but please acknowledge that, I do think they're on the other side of this, and I don't think them playing winning baseball is all that far away. I think they can get to, a win total in the 70s in next season. In 2024, they should be over 500.
But what is this? What is that reasoning? Because I've been
crazy.
a person.
That's why. No,
but it's just like, there's got to be a sense that it's like, if I'm a fan, like, if I'm going back and forth and I'm doing the same thing over and over and over, and I'm still failing. If you don't change up what you're doing, then it's like, what's the expectation that, like, there's no changes in the front office, there's no changes, in the coaching, in the management, in anything that's going on to help these guys be more prepared. Is it simply that they think that these younger guys are going to just start to get better and that's going to carry them, or is Bob Nutting actually going to invest into this group?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of both of those things, Chris, or all of those things. And, you hit on, I think, what is a tough aspect of this for people to understand. For people who don't have the ability that I do to go to Pirate City, to spend a lot of time there, to talk to a lot of people, like random fans can't just randomly call up scouts who scout the Pirates minor league system, or, their instructional league stuff, or at Pirate City to evaluate these players. And mind you, these people, they are not employed by the Pirates. They have no motive for lying. They look at this and say, like, this kid's good. Luis Ortiz, I remember a scout that I had covering the Florida State League, who has become a good source of mine, was telling me last year, like, Luis Ortiz is legit. Like, he's really good. And this was before he got good. This was before his ascent this year. Like, these people get paid to make these observations and to watch these baseball players. And you have fans who don't get paid to do this, who don't see these kids from a very young age, and they're levying opinions on whether or not this is going to stink. Like, I would caution you against that. But it is fair to say, if you're doing the same thing over and over again, why should I possibly believe you? Now, it's on the Pirates to explain this is what we're doing. And they've done some of that. And I would argue, and this is tying back to my point of, like, I have a benefit that other people don't. I've written about how they're developing players differently, how they're coaching them differently, how they're approaching the more open-mindedness, like the stuff that screwed them with Tyler Glasnow, Austin Meadows, bad trading with Shane Baz, not necessarily bad development, but, obstinance, basically saying, like, Garrett Cole, you're going to throw sinkers, instead of saying, Garrett Cole, you're good at throwing curveballs and sliders, throw a lot of those. That's an oversimplification, but, like, that's kind of what they're changing here. And they're hoping that they can bring young players along differently. I'm not saying they necessarily will, but they certainly have changed it. And to tie back to the other thing, and then I'll shut up because I've been talking for a while, but
you're fine.
Like, the young players that we talk about, developing them differently, there's a glut of talent at AA that sort of is objectively recognized as being good. Henry Davis, Nick Gonzalez, Jared Triolo. We've been down this list 100 times. Quinn Priester, Mike Burrows. A lot of those guys have moved to AAA. They're going to be in the Arizona Fall League, but, like, that's the nucleus of talent in the Pirates minor league system they're targeting. So when those guys get up to the big leagues, theoretically developed differently, that's when things are going to change, or the hope is that things are going to change for the Pirates. Now, if they can't develop those guys the right way, they're going to be in trouble. We'll see. I can't, nobody knows that for sure.
We will see. I want to ask Jason more questions about how this situation can get fixed. But first, we got to talk to you guys about Yinzers in the Berg, our great sponsor. Yinzers, listen up. With the Steelers campaign off and running, it's time to show your support for your black and gold. It's easy with 2 legendary shops in the Strip District. You can go there, or you can go to their growing online store. Yinzers in the Berg is the place to go for all your Pittsburgh sports apparel, accessories, and much, much more. If you're a Kenny Pickett fan, they're going to have a lot of Kenny Pickett gear, so you want to get that gear right now, whether it's shirts, hats, any accessories that you could think of, terrible towels. They got it all right there in Yinzers in the Berg. So they'll see you in the Strip District, or check out their online store, YinzersPGH.com. That's YinzersPGH.com for all your Pittsburgh sports apparel. Back here on the North Shore Drive podcast, I'm Chris Carter. He's Jason Mackey. Jason, let's talk about this in a different perspective here. And I'm going to speak from my limited experience, because I've been a fan of the Pirates. I haven't been a person that's ever covered a game, a practice, or anything from them.
I like your perspective, Chris. You should speak from it. That's good. I mean, you're the person they need to address.
I think that's part of it, is that I'm, and I don't want to be unreasonable. Like, I'm not a person that thinks that Mike Sullivan or Mike Tomlin should be fired every week. I'm coming with a sense of reasonableness, but reasonableness. when the only time that I can identify in my sports watching life with the Pirates was they had young talent coming up in the mid 2010s, but they needed some veteran leadership, some guys from outside the organization who knew about winning. AJ Burnett, Russell Martin, those type of guys, and they helped the culture of the locker room shift. Is that a big part of what's needed with this group? Because we know Key Brian Hayes, O'Neal Cruz, Brian Reynolds, there's Sawinski, there's guys on this that you like and that I like, that I'm like, hey, I want to go to the ballpark to see those guys. But does this group need 1, 2, or maybe even 3 guys from outside of the organization that are like, listen, this is what it means to be in a locker room every week that's competing to go to the playoffs?
1,000%, Chris. I'm not sure that's high enough. I mean, that's exactly what. And you know what the cool part of this is? They already have one.
Okay.
Roberto Perez is that guy. Now they need to put him in bubble wrap and don't allow him to get hurt again. But I truly believe they're going to bring him back, and he was so good for this club early on. Now it's a different personality than AJ Burnett, and that's okay. It's just because you're not screaming at the other teams or all tatted up or whatever. It works. And I love AJ Burnett. It's not ripping on AJ at all. But they have some places that they need to add this offseason. And I do think they're going to add. I really do. Maybe, again, I'm crazy. I don't know. But I do think they're going to add. So you factor in Perez behind the plate. He's the smartest one for me. They have a very big hole at first base. They need somebody that can supply offense over there. Well, a lot of times your first basemen are veteran guys. They don't move terribly well. You don't need the guy to move terribly well. But they've got some miles on the tires. They can hit a little bit. I don't care what his defense is personally, and somebody that's going to set a standard of expectations in the clubhouse. That's what they need. That's what they should be targeting in that spot. You always need more pitching. I'd like to see them get another starting pitcher and maybe a couple relievers, but you can get veteran guys. Jose Quintana was terrific for this team for $2 million. The year before that, they got Tyler Anderson. I forget what the number was, but it was cheap. And that's exactly what they need. And ironically, they need another left-hander this year because they've shipped out both of those. So, maybe it's Quintana. Maybe Quintana has interest in coming back here. I really doubt it. I think he's pitched well enough that he can go try to chase a ring on a World Series contender. But, Chris, if you're asking me, do they need guys that have some miles on the tire, some veteran leadership, some guys to set a standard of expectations? 3,000% yes. This is a good team, or I should say this team has good young players, but it's not necessarily a good team. It's a bad team.
They have over 100 losses to get.
Well,
but I get what you're saying.
Certainly. What I'm trying to explain though is they have some guys with talent that need an example to follow. They aren't objectively bad players.
I agree with that.
Going to be okay. Jack Sawinski is going to be okay, but the collective is not very good. I guess I didn't explain that very well. But you need somebody to help that sort of coalesce. And to me, this offseason, they should be efforting in that direction.
They should be. I think a big part of this too is needing to go out and get those guys, and I think that was part of the confidence, was that even after you had AJ Burnett and the Russell Martins, when they went and got out Marlon Byrd, that made me so excited. I was like, they believe in these guys. They actually have a shot, and they won one playoff game, and then lost in 5 to the Cardinals. But that was when I was like, oh geez, this makes sense. They're doing the things. I think if the Pirates fans can get some sense of faith, even if they miss, a Chris Archer trade didn't work out, but at least it was hey, you're trying in his point. Show that effort, show that hey, we're trying to be ahead of the curve. I think that could go a long way to what the Pirates need to do to get the fans back in the stadium, because let's face it, there's lots of apathy, and for good reason. Yeah,
and it need not be what they did at the beginning of it. You could literally, everything we're talking about, you could say that's what they did in 2022. Daniel Vogelback, Heath Hembree, Jose Quintana, Roberto Perez. I might be forgetting a guy, but that's what they did. And then they shipped off any of them that were good and then DFA'd the ones that were bad. You can't do that. You need to hold on to players.
Yeah.
There was too much roster churn this season. I think in my column, I counted up 28 players who were DFA'd. That's insane.
Yeah.
They used the franchise record 67, I want to say off the top of my head. They've been second in first in Major League Baseball this season, second all time. It's tough to keep track of this stuff, Chris. There's so many darn players, but you need to sign guys and keep them.
Yeah.
And keep them around. You cannot have just like vagabond baseball players and expect anything to come of it. And so, I mean, that's one reason why people are screaming for like a, not screaming, but you want to see a Jose Quintana 3-year deal or something like that. And I would love to see it too, but you need to find the players to where it makes sense for them. Like Russell Martin, AJ Burnett. I mean, it made sense for them to sign here, and then they built something cool. So find those players to where it makes sense for them to sign here and use them to build something cool and hope they stay around. Like Roberto Perez, honestly, is one of them. But you need like an AJ Burnett. You probably need a louder personality. This clubhouse is just too quiet. Again, like I was saying, there's some good players, a lot of good people, but you need kind of a jerk. There's nothing wrong with that. You need all kinds.
I do agree. You do need all kinds. We got to see if they address the locker room situation, the roster, what moves they make in the offseason. But before that, there's one more game to be played. They'll play that Wednesday. We'll see if they go back-to-back 101 lost seasons.
They're not, Chris. I predicted 62 and 100.
62 and 100. All right, there you go. There you have it. Jason Mackey.
I might actually bet. I'm not a betting man, but I might actually bet. We'll see.
That'd be an interesting bet. Jason, this has been a fun episode. We've talked Pirates, we've talked Steelers, Kenny Pickett. Everyone, pay attention to the Post-Gazette.com. The wrapping up of the season, you will have it there for all you Pirates fans, but for you Steelers fans, be ready because we got a lot coming all week long about Kenny Pickett's first week of practice as the starter and gearing up for what will be a very tough task to beat the Buffalo Bills, who many have as a Super Bowl favorite. We'll also have the Friday episode with Brian Batko here on the North Shore Drive podcast, breaking that matchup down. Jason, thanks for joining me. Again, thank you all for joining both of us here on the North Shore Drive podcast. Find the show on Apple, Spotify, Google Podcasts, YouTube. If you enjoyed this video on YouTube, like the video, subscribe to our YouTube channel, hit the notifications button to get updated with not just the North Shore Drive podcast, but all of our content coming up here. We did a pit mailbag segment, myself and Noah Hiles, breaking down all your questions. We'll do that again every Monday. We also got many more pieces of content coming your way. Stay tuned for all our great content here at the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette's YouTube channel. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the North Shore Drive podcast of the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. If you're watching this video on YouTube, please like the video and subscribe to our YouTube channel. For 6 months of digital access to post-gazette.com for just $6, click the link down below in the description.